Watch out, let me get a shot. Where they at? Where they at? Put on that rooftop. Hey! Give me a fucking 42 in the United States!
We're east of the riverbed. And, we're taking fire from the west. Roger, stand by, we're popping smoke. Gun runs north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Welcome to the Combat Leadership Podcast. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Thom Shea, welcome, my friend. Thanks for showing up for this podcast.
I appreciate you giving me a chance to help with combat leadership.
Oh, I love it, Tom. You know, we were talking a little bit before I hit record. I've been stalking you on social media. I know you've written a couple books. I read the first one. It was a great book. And so from one leadership guy to another, you know, I looked at you and like, okay, you're legit for my other podcast, which is pure business leadership. And then, of course, combat leadership. Your creds for this are beyond a doubt and all of that. So Navy SEAL, I believe, rose to the rank of Senior Chief.
Senior Chief, yeah.
Senior Chief Petty Officer. I know you were a Silver Star recipient. I'm mentioning that because I know you wouldn't, you know, so you've been there, done that, and under fire and all of that. So with that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your origin story, Tom? You know, where were you born, high school, sports? How'd you get into that? What'd you hear about the SEAL teams and all that?
You know, I've been asked that many times, and I've listened to and watched other podcasts and videos about people telling where they came. Maybe it's relevant. I grew up in southern Indiana, and we were talking about hunting before.
Yeah.
And working on farms. I grew up outside, and I was a really good football player. Got recruited. So if you're listening to this or watching it, I don't say that try to do what I did. It's probably the worst thing you could ever do to get into a leadership background or be effective in combat. But it alludes to if you can overcome bad stuff, you can do anything. So I grew up hunting, trapping, and having the freedom of having great parents give me the autonomy to go out and fail and do whatever I wanted, as long as I didn't do bad things. So the origin of what I call great leadership is I got recruited to play football at West Point, and ended up going. My dad had been a 59 grad, and oddly, my daughter graduated in class of 2020. So I go to West Point and I play football for 3 years, and I failed out in English and got turned out. And that, what I think great leaders have as a background is a sandy bottom that they hit and they have to reset. So that was a great sandy bottom for me, where I didn't hit rock bottom and fracture and break. And why go into the SEAL teams? A lot of kids ask that. A lot of leaders ask that. Why would you risk everything on something that, you know, is luck born? I had grown up with a man named Pat Tomlinson who had been on, he was class 2, and he knew a guy named Draper Kaufman who started the SEAL community. And I grew up admiring the guy because he had what I still long for, is he was one of the greatest human beings ever, and he was straightforward, and he never had an excuse for anything. And so that weird dynamic of having failed out of West Point and then growing up with a guy who never had an excuse for anything. If things didn't work out, it was his problem, and he would work it out and he'd solve it. And he'd get back on the horse no matter how bad things were. And he'd asked me, he said, now, Tom, that you'd failed out of West Point, what do you want to do? And I said, Pat, man, I've always wanted to be a SEAL. And he goes, sign up. And I'm like, Pat, I can't swim. And he said something that if you're running a business or if you're starting out in life, you'll never do anything until you commit to it. So I said, Pat, I got to learn how to swim. He goes, you'll never learn until you sign up. Burn the boats and figure it out. So I went to a SEAL or Navy recruiting office, and there happened to be a SEAL in there. And I walked in all ego-centered. Hey, I want to be a SEAL. And the guy turned around, had a trident on, which is the gold emblem of what it is to be a SEAL. And he goes, okay, well, let's go out and take the test. And I took the test and failed. And he said, you need to learn how to swim. Don't come back until you can. And so it took me 3 months of self-doubt. I didn't want to be coached. I'm a terrible person to coach. And I've darn near drowned in the pool. And a female, lifeguard said, hey, do you want to learn how to swim? Because I'm embarrassed to watch you. And her dad had been a SEAL, which I think is a great turn. So I spent about a month going to the pool, probably 6 days a week, and her teaching me what they call it's a side stroke and how to swim. I went back and took the test and passed it and enlisted into the SEAL program, specifically into SEALs. The reason why I think that's a cool story is, man, if you hit a sandy bottom, you can recover. It doesn't end there. And the next thing that happened to me is failure after failure after failure. And, I may have alluded to it in the book that you wrote or read. I had written a book to my family in combat later in life, and I tried to explain to them things I thought were relevant. So leads to me enlisting into the SEAL program. And I failed 4 times, or I got injured 4 times. And at every injury, the only way out of the SEAL program is to quit, be injured so much that you can't come back, or fail a test. Oddly, very few people fail any tests there. So I got injured in my first Hell Week, and I'd got a concussion, and they brought the bell over to me while still being concussed. They said, quit or start over. Imagine trying to start over something that everybody fails at. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to quit. They're like, all right, you got a week off and you start in a week. And I thought I would be better. And I started the second class, got to Hell Week again, and dislocated my shoulder. Same question, quit or stay. So I said, I'm not going to quit. So they allowed me to stay because I was a pretty good performer, meaning I could do well. And they gave me a little more time off, about a month and a half, and recovered my shoulder, started another class, got to Hell Week again, got pneumonia. I wouldn't quit. They retained me for the 4th class, which they don't do that anymore, thank God, and made it to Hell Week again with pneumonia for 6 weeks. And I'd lost about 40 pounds of having pneumonia. Got to Hell Week, woke up in the hospital, and there you have scar tissue in your lungs and you're out of the program. I tell that story because unless you're willing to stay at something at all costs, you probably won't be successful. And you probably have seen that in your life, Mike.
Yeah.
So I called Pat again, having flunked out or being kicked out of the program. And I said, hey, I didn't make it. And he goes, yeah, I heard. And he goes, what are you going to do? I said, well, no way to go back. The Navy won't let me. And he goes, who's the Navy? Who are these naysayers that say you can't go back? I said, well, officially, I can't go back. And he goes, go into your boss's office every day and ask to go back. And I had been a corpsman, which is a medic. And every day for 9 months while working at the hospital, I went to the admiral's office with a request chit to go back. 4 months in, he said, hey, listen, I can't let you go back because medically your lungs aren't good enough, so stop coming to the office. And I'm giving you an order not to come back, or I'm going to take rank from you. And so that was on a Friday. On Monday, I came back, and I got an admiral's board, and I went from E4 to E3. And that was on a Wednesday. And on Thursday, I went back to his office. So for another 2 months, he couldn't even look at me. He saw me every lunch. And he finally came out on a Friday. Maybe something great happened the night before for him. Who knows? And he signed the chit. And I got back in 9 months. And started, and what had I learned from that? If you don't quit, something new can happen. And if you do quit, you'll never get over that problem again.
Yeah.
And so I made it back. We started out with 111 kids and graduated 11, which is the same paradigm of every class throughout history. And that's the origin of how I made it into the SEAL program.
Two questions. One, I know the program, BUDS, has a high attrition rate. Well, what is the habitual attrition rate of the originals that start and the guy standing on the grinder at the graduation day?
So if you stay in the same class, call that being in your original class, there's about 11 to 12%. But there's roll-ins, people that are injured, fail something, get rolled back a class. So we graduated 11 originals and 28 people. And that's the same paradigm. Sometimes you can front load more numbers into the class, like instead of 111 start, sometimes they start out with 180, and it's still around 11 to 10% of the originals, which is a terrible business investment. Think of business trying to do that, where 90% of the people don't make it, and all the money and risk involved into that. But very weird phenomenon. Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question. Before I do ask this question, but what years are we talking about here? When did you go to boot camp? When did you go to BUDS? When did you graduate finally?
I graduated in 96.
Okay.
And I went in the Navy in 92.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Well, I'm going to ask you this question because it does correlate with our whole reason for being here, was to pass on lessons. And I know, and you know well better than me because you're a frogman, but I've read enough to where the Navy had said, the Special Warfare Committee said, we're really wasting a lot of money. We got to figure this out. We got to get better at screening these guys so they have a higher chance. From what I understand and read, they brought in PhDs, scientists. They tried to figure it out, predictors of success. And no matter what they try, those final attrition stats pretty much always stay constant.
They haven't changed since class 1. So around 10 to 15, the highest that it's been is around 18%. And they brought in RAND while I was there to do a big think tank. We spent about $30 million putting in a facility up in Chicago post boot camp, preparing the enlisted staff to not quit. Made no difference. Even in injury rate, it's made no significant difference. The higher rate is from Annapolis. So about 50 to 70% of the officers make it through, which is a great phenomenon. But they spend 4 years in an environment that wants them to be physically and mentally sound, and and it's not as restrictive. And I don't know if that would be of benefit to the enlisted community, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I asked this question. We're going to get into the details and nitty gritty of leadership, but I always start with a high level question. If somebody ran into you and said, "Oh, I know who you are, Thom," and you say, "Hey, man, I got to go. I got a meeting," and they say, "All right, just real quick, what's your overall philosophy on combat leadership? If you were going to tell me a couple things as a combat leader advice, what would you say?"
Boy, isn't that the $1 million question? Holy Toledo. I have been asked that many times. You ask that to yourself as a combat leader. So as a platoon chief, that's the question. What am I missing that if I can get back down to the fundamentals that I can't avoid? What's not negotiable?
Yeah.
And I had read some books that were pointed towards answering that. You know, Draper Kaufman, the guy who started the SEAL program, had been superintendent of Annapolis before he died. And he'd said the most important thing as a leader is when you make a promise, keep it. Well, what the hell does that matter? It's fundamental in combat when you're around soldiers, sailors, SEALs, Marines, is when you promise to do something, that then defines you and your troop or your platoon or squad. And it becomes true in combat, especially in the SEAL environment, is if a SEAL platoon picks up a target and they agree to go do it, that's now the distinction that they are in the world. I don't know any other way to say it. When they've promised to do something, you got 20 guys that's now how they define themselves. They're going to hit that target. And I begrudgingly say, if you're targeted by the SEAL community, you're done, because they're going to do it. Not because they're genetically predisposed to do it.
Right.
Is they've learned something through training that I don't care how I feel. I promise to be here. If my leg hurts, if I'm on the brink of a divorce, I'm going to still be here until this thing is over. And that's big in leadership. I think it's the defining factor. Is I call it honor your word and never give up. And if that's a basic premise, you recognize, boy, I don't do that very well. Humans don't do that very well. And the ones who do are wildly successful.
Yeah, well said. Well, it looks like, and I know who Draper Kaufman is. I've read about him as well. He's the guy that figured out Hell Week, right?
Hell Week, yeah. He just wanted to get rid of people who were going to quit.
Yeah.
Who could make a promise and keep it. That's the distinction of not quitting. So his only reason to put on Hell Week is I want to give everybody 1,000 reasons to quit. And I want to only train the people who aren't quitters.
Yeah.
And boy, your friends go away, top athletes go away, guys you're like, man, he's the biggest stud I've ever seen. And he's the best athlete, he's the best shot. But boy, if you're going to quit, I can't teach you anything. And that's the only distinction in the SEAL teams is you have a group of people who aren't going to quit. And it becomes a phenomenal environment to be around or be in.
So Draper Kaufman obviously was a role model, a great influence on you. Like other guys, are there any mentors that, or other role models that had an influence on you as a combat leader?
I think there's about 1,000. So in the SEAL community, not everybody's great. Not every officer is great. Not every chief is great. But the ones that are always have that distinction. They're going to be there no matter what, and they're going to see their group through no matter what. They're not doing it for any other reason than they promised to be there. And I was always drawn to that, not only because of Draper, but I'd found that, boy, if I can keep my word, I'm more value to people. And so I don't know if it's an easy way to answer that, but I was always drawn to the people who aren't going to go back on something they said, even if it hurts them.
Well, thank you for that. And you just prompted me to ask a question. It just popped in my head while you were speaking. Based upon when you enlisted and first were a SEAL, I'll bet you that the chief community, those primary leaders and mentors in the SEAL community, I'll bet there was a mix of Vietnam vets and then guys who, through no fault of their own, they just joined. So now you're a chief. You got no more combat experience than the young E4 petty officer, but you're still leading and mentoring them, prepping them for combat. So where I'm going with this is we're going to get into the guts of this, but I never put this on the agenda. Someone might be listening to this now or 5 years from now and say, great, I'm a gunnery sergeant, or I am a chief, or, whatever. I'm a special forces, team sergeant, and I got no combat experience. How can I legitimately mentor these guys and prep them for combat when they look at me like, he's never done it either? What would be your answer to that? Because it's going to happen. Let's face it. If there's no wars, you can't attend one.
It never occurred. It doesn't occur often in the SEAL teams. That conversation doesn't occur often, meaning the chiefs, the great men that you're following or on a team with, every time you train, you're training for what, if you want to call it combat. So it doesn't matter if you have experience. The next training mission is training you to fall apart, things go bad. How do I interact with each other? How do I keep my skill set up? And in the business communities, there's the conversation called experience in something matters. In a training environment, you're getting experience by going through hard, difficult things with this group. Yeah. So I could have cared less. My first platoon chief had been UDT in Vietnam. The fact that he had some combat experience meant nothing to us. It's what are we doing together that we can accomplish together through hardship? And sometimes he wasn't the best, and sometimes guys were better, but he never said, you got to follow me because I have experience 20 years ago. He's, what am I doing now that I can benefit you? And I never saw that as the guy had experience, therefore I'm going to listen. If his experience doesn't make a difference now, he's probably not going to be there for very long.
Yeah, and I think
tactics change. Vietnam tactics don't make a difference in Iraq,
Right, yeah. And I was asking that question, and I should have clarified it, so you're helping me with this. I'll refine it for the next guy. Less for the troop who looks at the guy, well, who the hell is this guy? And more for, right now, the staff sergeant, the leading petty officer, all that, and he doesn't have any combat experience. And you're saying the question doesn't happen, but he might be doubting himself. Hey, you're all they got. You know what I mean? You've got to do this. You've got to train. You've got to study. You've got to be a student of your profession and all that. So, any last thoughts on that?
Yes. So there's not an easy way to answer it, but your past makes no difference to anybody. It's what you're doing right now. So I don't care if I didn't care that I brought experience to the table. When I picked up a platoon chief slot, the fact that I had been successful before didn't mean a lot to me. I had to know what I had in front of me. So I had to know the skill sets and the demeanor and the characteristics of the guys. And I had to know what our next mission was, even if it was going to the shopette and not fucking things up. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. I see it in business, and you said, you know, the mentoring and leadership that we both do now as a business model. Who cares about what you did yesterday? How good are you at doing something today with the relevant human beings that are under you or above you? It doesn't really matter. So it's a curse to have experience if you're not available today.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think there's going to be some youngsters out there, and I'm almost 70 years old, Tom, so everybody's a youngster to me. So for the guys out there, I'm not insulting you or demeaning you, you know.
Yep.
I think there's going to be some listening or watching this video that do want to be a SEAL or a SOF operator and all that. But the vast majority of them are going to be conventional soldiers and Marines and all of that. So I don't want anybody to listen, and unless you tell me they should do this, I don't want anybody to listen to this to say, you know, what he's saying really only applies to special operations combat leadership. I don't think it carries over if you're a platoon sergeant in an infantry battalion and all of that, or you know, the 101st Airborne or something. I know you've worked in combat with enough and trained and worked in combat with enough conventional units because you often support each other. So you've observed their leadership. Are there any real differences? Certainly there's differences in the soldiers. You're much more highly trained and all that. You don't got a kid that's 8 months out of high school and all of that, but leadership fundamentals and all that. And we're talking about, you know, combat leadership, conventional leadership, just general military leadership. And I'll ask the question like this. As a petty officer, leading petty officer, or a chief in peacetime, was there that much of a difference in your demeanor and actions, behavior as a leader, and then in combat, where the stakes are obviously higher? I don't know if I'm doing a good job of asking this, but I think
well,
you know what I'm driving at.
I don't think we have to beat around the bush so much. There's the only distinction between a SOF operator, a regular Marine, a regular Navy, regular Army man or woman is training. The amount of training put into a SEAL or a Delta or a Green Beret is going to be higher. Yeah. So the amount of bullets I shoot, if you want to get down to the basics, the amount of bullets that I shoot will far and exceed a regular boot Marine infantry guy.
Yeah.
So if you take training out, so if that's not the indicator of success, what is the key to leadership or combat leadership? And I'm going to stumble on this. It's being relevant right now. And how I would say that is it's always basic stuff like we were talking offline. The only thing you can provide your troop, even in business, is keeping things so basic that when chaotic experiences happen, like combat, all combat is trying to keep the basic skills in play while everything seems to be eroding around you that you can't control. You can control training environment at home. You don't want to wreck a helo and then have that be part of a scenario. Can you keep the basic skills that you've been taught from Marine Corps through Army? What are those basic skills? Can you keep those between the navigational beacons, so to speak, in a combat environment? That's business too. What are the basic skills? So what I say about leadership is the job as a leader is to not think advanced, not think highfalutin, keep Johnny on his basic skill trend and not let him deviate. If you haven't trained to do it, don't allow somebody to do it in combat. And that is why SEALs train all the time, is because you avoid doing esoteric things in combat.
Yeah.
And hey, by the way, you can still shoot even though you've been shot. Don't panic, because it's not going to be helpful. We didn't train to panic, so don't do it now. Like we were talking before, front sight focus and squeeze the trigger. Can you do that? And can you operate towards each other, which is a beautiful phenomenon? Can you fight towards each other first? Don't worry about the enemy. Find your buddy first. Don't shoot sporadically. Find your buddy and then make a decision. And those are basic skills. The only great leaders that I've ever been around that I tried to emulate is those guys who kept everything basic all the time. And it makes all the difference. If you were to ask me if I were to answer it in one succinct question or answer, is combat leadership is those people who made things chaotic, basic, and didn't do anything that they weren't trained, they were trained not to do. So,
yeah.
Everybody wants a different answer, but man, that I actually enjoyed combat. It was a great, rewarding experience.
Yeah.
Everything really was meaningful in combat. It's very intense. Your senses are heightened.
Yeah.
And can I front sight focus when there's 1,000 things to shoot at? Can I shoot the one bird in the covey? You know what I mean?
No, I agree with that. My own limited experience is it's an environment like no other. And I remember one time after a pretty good engagement, I've never done a drug in my lifetime. I actually remember, hadn't slept in a few days, but I was on some kind of natural high. And I remember thinking, this is why guys take drugs.
Yes.
To feel like I'm feeling right now.
Yep.
Like this just must be what like cocaine does for you, because I never felt more alive in my life, you know? So I hear you on that.
The hormonal boost of serotonin and dopamine and adrenaline. That's the only reason why people go back to combat, because it makes sense to them. Everything works.
Yeah, I agree with that. As much as it sucks and, you know, bad experiences and all that, my experience has been almost everybody would say it sucked, but I miss it. I'd go back if I could, you know.
Everybody was relevant. Everybody's meaningful. There's no judgment. There's just this moment, and it's very intense.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to ask you a two-sided question here of a coin with two sides, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you've worked with, observed a lot of combat leaders, Thom. So at a high level, are there any traits, habits, personalities that most of the very best seem to have in common? And then if you flip that coin, let's face it, there are ineffective, mediocre, and even bad combat leaders. Are there some traits, habits that they possess as well? You know, I'm looking for most good ones do this, most bad ones do that. Any thoughts?
That's it may be hurtful, but I'll attempt to answer it.
Yeah, no.
Great leaders on the outside and in combat all have the same traits. By the time you get in a leadership position, you have to change. And the change is, this isn't about me anymore. It's about the dudes or the company. It's not about the goal either. It's not about, 10x profit. It's about the people. Every combat leader in the SEAL teams that does extremely well doesn't do it for themselves anymore. And it's a clear break, because you're taught in the SEAL teams, develop your own skills. Like be the best sniper, be the best breacher, be a super athlete. And it's center focused. Like, I'm focused on me being better. If you focus on yourself in the SEAL teams at the chief level, the guys will not work with you or for you. Like you'll get 30% of effectiveness from them. And because it's not your reward anymore. I've already been a sniper. I've already done all those jobs. I could probably do them better than you. But if I keep overshadowing you and showing you how good I am, you're never going to grow. So you end up doing a lot of things for the dudes that help them grow. Same thing in the business world. Great leaders are doing it for the people that are under them, so that the team can grow. So the other side of that coin is when you're trying to build an empire. So if you're an empire builder, you're doing it for you. And you can be extremely successful monetarily by building an empire. In the SEAL teams, if it's noticed that you're doing it for your own glory, your own reward, your own rank, you're trying to worry about the next rank, and the platoon will literally reject you. Mm-hmm. And in the business world, it's hard to reject the guy that's at the top because he's paying you. They just don't do as well. And it's a humbling experience to stop doing it for yourself and risk doing it for somebody else, because it feels like failure for a while. Because it's a lot easier to do it my way, because I've already proven my way. But letting things falter for a while so that people can learn and own the results themselves is, I think, the greatest trait of a great leader is I can absorb failure for a while, and I don't care how I look. It matters how the guys, how their skills are developing. It's what's happening with the platoon.
Yeah. Yeah. You have, you've stated a few things about the bad leaders and all that. Any finishing touches you want to put on traits, habits, tendencies of the bad ones, the ineffective ones?
Man, I think in my adult life, I stopped paying attention to trying to figure out what's bad and hone in on the stuff that I know will be effective. Like overcoming bad things is a very difficult thing to do. So I'll answer it differently. If you find yourself worried about you and outcome, help somebody more. If you're a leader that's worrying about bottom line and how it's going to influence you and and your own ego, drop your ego for a while and help somebody in your company get better.
Yep.
If you don't have that trait, you're probably a bad leader.
Yeah.
And if you end up firing people because they're difficult and you can't help them, that's the double-edged sword. Is, do I fire people because I'm worried about my own outcome, or do I fire them because they're just not trainable? Or am I firing them because it's too difficult? If it's too difficult to help them, keep helping them.
Yeah.
And they'll stay longer.
No,
once attrition to me in the business world is it because the leader has a terrible trait. They're just worried about outcome, and the people don't matter. In the SEAL teams, once you're in a SEAL team, there's very low attrition because the people matter. I will stay in an environment and work my ass off a lot harder if the guy's letting me fail and recover and get better. If I fail and I can't recover, then I never get better. And so that to me is a characteristic of great leadership, is they let things fall apart, recover, let them fall apart and recover more. It's just expensive to do that, but it's a better trait to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one common question, and I even had it, as a young guy, there's going to be people watching this and saying, basically self-doubt is, am I really capable of being an effective combat leader? And I don't know if you had anybody ever came to express any doubts to you and all of that. But what would you say to that guy? Because let's face it, right now, 20 years ago, the services, SEAL teams, and the Marine Corps had more combat experience since World War II. I mean, everybody, you couldn't swing a dead cat without finding a multi-tour veteran. And now, through no fault of their own, we have in the Marine Corps field grade officers and first sergeants never heard a shot. And let's face it, the balloon goes up, they're going to be combat leaders. They're in the role.
Now the combat leader that you didn't want to be. Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody that has a little bit of self-doubt? Like, I'm just wondering can I do this? I'm nobody special. Can I do this? What would you say to them?
It's self-doubt. That conversation called I'm unworthy will never, ever escape you. It's there 24/7. It never gets quiet, ever. I've never heard anybody lose self-doubt. So if you doubt your capability, if you're a kid, I don't think I can make it into school. If you're an adult, I don't think I should start a new job. It's too hard. I don't think I'm the right person. That's just a song playing in the background in the shower. Don't pay attention to it. Like, literally get after it. It never goes away. It never went away in combat. It gets a little quieter, but it's always there. I never picked up a mission that I thought we were going to win. Dude, we're all going to die. I don't know if I have what it takes. It's always there. And if you hear somebody say, "Oh, I never doubted it," bro, you're lying to yourself. There's no way. Everything feels like it's not working, especially in business. In a marriage, are you the right person? You always have doubt. Don't let doubt stop any activity. That's the differentiation. Is if self-doubt is stopping you, take action.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer. Well, here's the questions I used to ask myself. I was surrounded when I went in the Marine Corps in '74. We still had World War II guys. And a lot of Korean guys and Vietnam guys were all over. And, you look at these guys, I'm 17, 18, the first sergeant's got a bayonet scar from a Japanese guy on Iwo Jima, and you're wondering, there's no way I could ever live up to these guys' standards and all of that. But I knew that was the essence of the Marine Corps. And like I'm sure you were as a young SEAL, you're never... I hate to say this, but it's true, because I don't want to insult guys that never get a chance. I'm sure you knew SEALs that did a full career, never got a chance to go to combat. They just, timing wasn't right. But we both know, in a way, you don't really, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You're in a gun club and you want that opportunity to fight. And you look at the guys that got the opportunity and you want it badly because you want to join that next level of the fraternity, so to speak. Here's what I asked myself, subconsciously at least. Will I be too afraid to perform well under fire? Will I remember what I'm supposed to do, no matter what it is, a machine gunner, platoon sergeant, lieutenant or whatever? Am I going to be able to see my friends killed and wounded? And then the question we never really talk about in the military, and I never really had a problem with this, but I know some guys do agonize over it. Am I going to be able to kill another human being? And I never had that. Yeah, and when I experienced that, I had no remorse whatsoever. But I've had guys tell me I agonized it before, during, and after, whether they were religious or whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? So those were the questions, I think. And I've run these by a lot of people, and most people have asked themselves most of them, and maybe a few more. So any thoughts from personal experience?
I take kind of a biblical approach. Murder is wrong. Murder. And how I distinguish murder is in cold-blooded, no reason for it. Yeah. Drive-by shooting, shoot somebody because you're angry that your mother abused you. That is probably a bad way to talk about the death of another human being. If you can distinguish killing as that way. So the military is in the business of killing. If somebody tells you that they're the proving grounds for humans and, the social experiment, it's not that.
Yep.
The last few administrations tried to create a social experiment. It was ineffective. You're in the business to go to war, and war is in the business of killing another human being. That's how you break down the military. Whether you do that aloft as an Air Force pilot or on the ground as a Marine where you're 2 inches away from somebody, you're in the business of doing that. Whether it's right or wrong, I hope that you resolve it prior, because it can be crippling. Sitting in your head worrying about things that have no merit is probably a human terrible trait to have, is ruminating about things that you should have an answer for. Will you be enough? That's just another human problem, is that question never gets answered, ever. You never feel like you're adequate, ever. Even after you won the Medal of Honor. I know a lot of Medal of Honor winners. They felt like they didn't deserve it. And I don't think it's a medal that's a deserving medal, because you're near death to get it. But maybe a story would be better. And if we have time, I'd like to. So
absolutely, please.
Long career. I was in Kosovo twice back when Kosovo was the only thing.
Yeah.
I went to Iraq several times and then picked up a platoon chief slot to go to Afghanistan. And other than the self-doubt that's all there, that's a cool conversation, but everybody is always going to have it. Combat, we went there with a direct tasking by a guy named General Ed Reeder, to kill 200 Taliban. So our unit of 60 total SEALs, 58 total SEALs, were to go into combat and kill the Taliban. It's a great mission set to have. The level of clarity of leadership from the top, if you can ever be that clear to your people, that makes freedom happen. Because if you can give people freedom to drive towards that goal, it was great.
Yeah.
49 combat missions on 46 of them, we ran out of food, water, and ammo. And we got used to it. We got used to running out, getting ammo dropped on target by helos or parachute, weapons into us and people into us to support us. And then one mission, the one that I ended up receiving the Silver Star for, was a mission that went bad. And I can say most awards that you see on people's chest is because the mission that they are on went sideways and upside down, and people had to do above and beyond to get anything done. So this mission was deep in the mountains of Afghanistan, 4 months into a 6-month deployment. And it culminated in what I call bad leadership. Bad leadership on my part and bad leadership from the colonel that's watching it on what we call Kill TV, because SEALs get a satellite tasked to them and they have Predator drones and they can watch it on Kill TV. We had killed 38 Taliban throughout the day. We were supposed to be there for 2 days, and the boss watching it on Kill TV said, "Good job to us. We're going to pull you out early," which is what I now teach in leadership. and not trying to make a teaching point, but it's a great, as you're thinking about combat leadership, especially on this podcast, what not to do. So when your guys are in the middle, your salespeople are in the middle of a great sales month, guys are in the middle of combat, guys are doing really great at something very impossible, never tell them that they're doing good, because something phenomenally happens to the human condition. When you get acknowledgement for something while you're doing it, you stop doing it. And I've seen it in business. I see it in marriages. I see it everywhere. Until they're done, don't acknowledge them. So he acknowledged us for the great work that we did. We literally stopped doing it. In the middle of combat, we stopped being combatants. I had taken my body armor off. I was like, wow, look how great we are. We're going to leave here in an hour. Everybody, we'd just been shooting like 5 minutes before. Everybody stopped paying attention. The moment I stopped paying attention and acknowledged my platoon, they stopped. And in combat, you can imagine that be catastrophic. And what then became about a 25-minute firefight, I got blown up into a room. I'm half conscious, half not conscious. And what happened to me is a learnable point, is I literally stopped telling myself to continue. I was laying on the ground. Probably the greatest peace I've ever felt was me giving up. The only time in my life I had literally said it's a lot easier just to sit here and die. So I stopped rallying. I stopped honoring my word. I stopped trying to get back in the fight. And, that woe is me, I'm not good enough. I started listening to it. And it's not hard to acknowledge now. It was hard to acknowledge for a couple years after that.
Sure.
And we fell apart. And the only thing that rallied us was maybe some other guys rallied, but I rallied. I'm like, I'd rather fight until I die than sit here. So I kind of rallied to put my body armor back on. I got back into the fight. I got pinned down in the room by a sniper. I ended up finding the guy who was 638 yards away. I got a shot on him. After he'd shot my helmet off, I finally got the shot placement on him. Then our roof blows up above me. Another rocket hits it. I see my two guys who I thought were now going to die midair, falling out, about 30 foot in the air. I thought, well, they're dead. And I rallied another young kid that was in my platoon, and his conversation in combat was an acknowledgement that it was over. It's usually the F word, especially as a sailor. Like, hey, boss, we are effed. They're everywhere. And he kept saying that out loud because that's what we were all feeling. Like when things get overwhelming, you want to acknowledge it. And I said, hey, bro, here, listen, we're going to fight till we're dead. And all the blood came running back into his head. And what I'd said earlier in the podcast, man, just be relevant right here. What can I do right now? I don't care how great we were yesterday. Right now is the only thing that mattered. So we got back into that, I call it like the 3-inch fight. I can fight another 3 inches. And I rallied him. I found the other 6 guys, rallied them, and they were using the F word. They were pinned down into a room. They couldn't get out of it, and got them back into the fight by just getting back into the basics. You two throw grenades over the wall because we're now out of bullets. You two shoot the 40 Mike over the wall. And then myself and another guy who, guy named Mike Tatum, who died on another combat deployment, shot the 60 millimeter mortars. That's all we had left. And then we're out of all the explosive ammo that we had. We had a B-1 bomber check on, and the only bomb that he had left was a 2,000-pound JDAM. And I'd ordered him to drop on us. because I was like, man, I looked at my platoon, the other 7 guys. I'm like, hey, you understand what I'm going to do? They're like, do it, because we're going to get killed anyway. It would be easier just to die in like 3 seconds. So he offset the bomb by 50 yards, which is still, we're inside the kill radius.
Oh, yeah.
And we were buried in rubble. All of us survived, and the 38 Taliban that were about 100 yards from us, I don't know what happened to them. They didn't survive. And by just getting back into the basic mindset of I can do basic stuff right now, as opposed to thinking thoughts that are unworthy. I can't do this. I'm a terrible leader. I let this happen. All that shit doesn't matter. Fight back into the game. Like what, you like the lone survivor, he kept fighting.
Yeah.
And that is a lesson that I now try to get people to learn. Find the basics and keep those basic skills going when things go awry, because they're going to go awry everywhere. And watch how many wonderful things happen. And that's all the combat is can you do the basic things? Yeah.
Yeah, great story. Thanks for sharing it. And a lot of that was in your book, so it was, deja vu to me. So thanks for sharing that, Thom.
Sure, appreciate it.
I want to talk about a topic that is often controversial. I know in soft forces as well as especially conventionals, and I was one of them, 17-year-old PFC. Like, why do we have to do this shit? What's the emphasis? Oh, haircuts, especially Marines, what? Come on, And so I wanted to get your thought on it because, during peacetime, especially in conventional forces, there's a lot of emphasis on what the troops have traditionally called chicken shit, barracks inspections, why the first sergeant's on our ass about haircuts, they don't shine boots anymore because of the boots. I'm okay with that. But you get my point,
I'm totally okay with that.
yeah, yes. And so what's your thoughts on that? Because I know discipline is important. First of all, what do you consider discipline? Like, what kind of discipline matters in a combat environment? And does any of this stuff that we do in garrison transfer? Because the gunnery sergeant will tell young Marines, he's either going to say, do it because I said do it and shut up, which you're going to do because he's a gunnery sergeant, or he's going to say, I know it doesn't seem like it, but having a good barracks, looking good in uniform, making sure the weapons are clean, all of this other stuff, maintenance of our vehicles, it does transfer to combat. We're not going to be able to shave. We're not going to be able to get haircuts, but it's a different kind. That discipline now, do we have the right crypto fills in? Did you bring the spare batteries? Do we have our shit wrapped tight and all of that? So I'll shut up now. What kind of discipline matters in combat? And what would you tell these young troops, especially conventional troops? Does any of it carry over, the general breeding of discipline? Because the old salts in the Marine Corps will tell you, if you can't do these simple things in peacetime, chances are you're not going to suddenly get hit with the discipline wand, and you're going to be falling asleep on your LPOP on us, that kind of stuff. Any thoughts?
Well, boy, that's a lot of questions. Then they all have unique answers. From a leader's point of view, having spent 23 years in the teams, one of your jobs as a leader is to fill the soldier, sailors, Marine day with something. Just to be as straightforward as possible. Even a leader in business is to, if you have 8-hour employees, you got to fill their day with something. So Marine Corps is a little over the top on what we're calling discipline.
Right.
There are stupid shit things like do a walk down of the barracks area the 5th time today. It's also because trying to fill your day with something. That's probably level 1. Level 2 discipline is do the important things. So sometimes in garrison, it doesn't seem important to tuck your shirt in. In garrison, as like a Navy guy, swab the deck again, bro. I just did 3 hours ago. I got to clean it again. One is that's your job to keep things clean and tidy, and it does have a correlate effect. The third level of discipline is how does it translate? Are we doing the right things that would correlate to combat? It probably doesn't matter if this thing in garrison would correlate to combat. It's just the third level of discipline is stop complaining. Just stop it. If somebody asks you to do something, unless it's stupid, go do it. And if you're a sergeant, go do it too. Like if your element is tasked with something, don't order them to do something and go in and watch TV. Get off of your undisciplined butt and go out and help. If it's that important to ask somebody to do something, stop complaining that people aren't doing it. Go out and support it. So in combat, discipline is keeping the complaints down and the basic skills up, because it's so easy to complain in a chaotic environment. Yeah. Things aren't well. You're not feeling great, and you're probably going to get injured. If you're a complainer in garrison, you will be a complainer in combat. That is a truth that I see as a correlate. If you have trouble in garrison doing things that don't make sense, in combat, you won't do the basic things that we're asked to because they won't make sense. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody listening, but stop complaining that the world's not giving you what you want and start being a solution to something. If there's something to do, do it. Because in combat, there's just stuff to do. And it doesn't make sense to do it, but you got to do it. And if you're complaining in garrison, you are not going to be an advantage in combat.
Yeah. Great answer. And I want to throw in an ad lib question because I got a soft guy, a SEAL in front of me. I've been on Facebook forums just observing and all that, and the Marines will say, why? I mean, look at the SEALs. I mean, look at Delta guys. They got friggin' beards. Doesn't matter. They kicked ass, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to get the answer this time. My theory is, well, first of all, if you want to grow a beard, go to selection. Go be a soft guy. 100%. Go be a soft guy. They have to follow less of those garrison rules. But I maintain, here's my theory is, well, by the way, I'll throw this in there. I used to have a bet. I loved SEALs when I was in active duty, but they were the antithesis of Marines on an active ship. Yeah. And I used to tell my guys, no, listen, don't judge a book by a cover. These are good guys, and they're physical specimens, and they train well, and you want them on our side. Don't judge a book by its cover. But I said, but I will tell you this. I'll give you $100 if throughout this deployment you can ever grab me and say, hey, look, 2 SEALs dressed identically. You will never see a frog. They got all sorts of funky uniforms, hunting clothes, and I never had to pay that bet. So I loved them. But that said, despite the beards, despite the unique, some guys buy, civilians didn't wear it, I would say that from the conventional guy looking in, these guys don't have to follow rules. I say, no, you guys got to follow rules. In fact, I think at the end of the day, it's all about discipline that makes you guys effective. Your thoughts?
So I don't know if I would preface it with the discipline conversation. Your job as a SEAL is to do whatever it takes to accomplish the mission.
Yeah.
If, these boots don't fit, because you have, your left foot's bigger than your right foot and you don't have to be uniform. Your job is to be able to hike 20 miles and not complain about it. And if you need to go buy civilian gear to do that, you better figure it out. So in the SEAL community, they take away some of the constraints that in regular military,
Sure.
uniformity sometimes isn't effective, but you're dressing different to solve a problem that you face. And a lot of Marines and Army guys don't see that. But you have, so maybe discipline comes into play, meaning you have to always be ready, always. And when you're operational, your kit is always 2 seconds away from a firefight. So that level of discipline is rare in a garrison environment. Are you ready to go right now? Can I go grab your kit? No. So when a SEAL's operational, he's ready to go right now. And whether he's wearing something wrong or not, he's still going to go. And he's going to find a way to solve a problem that is very unique in an environment that is very chaotic. Going back to there is no better unit, and I say this everywhere. Anytime you want to, in a combat environment, you can always call a Marine unit to go, and they'll go without training. They'll go without a PLO. They'll go if they just have a 10-digit grid and a timeline. And they will always show up ready for anything you ask them. There aren't any unit that I've ever worked with in any military that's that way other than the U.S. Marines. They're ready. When they're in country, they'll go, even if they're in their pajamas, they'll go. Even without ammo, even with terrible M16s that they've shined from, gun black to silver, they're going to go because of the mindset that that's their job in the world is to go to war. And you're not going to ask, even though I said we're always ready. I have to do some kind of planning. We could call Marines up and they're like, hey, we're pinned down, come and get us. They're coming.
Yeah.
Without ammo, without fuel, anything, they're coming. And that to me is the epitome of what we're talking. They're disciplined that they're going to go to war. And when they're in country, they're the biggest heathen of war that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for the answer, and thanks for the compliment. I've heard that, and people ask me, Mike, what the hell did they do to these kids at Parris Island to instill that ethos? I don't know. It's just it's just baked in.
I don't even have that mindset. I'm like, man, Marines, they'll fight each other. Oh my God.
There's no class on it. It's baked into it. You know, it's 100%. Just, I think a lot of it's peer pressure. You don't want to be a pussy. You got to, don't cave in. You got to show up. But, you said some things, and I don't know if you saw me writing. I'm going to change this question for future podcasts. But when I'm saying discipline, what I say is, do these things in garrison, and you will probably be, your peers and mates you are reliable, dependable, and you're competent. And that's what it really boils down to. And so my thought, to rephrase the question.
Yeah, the vagary of the conversation called discipline, we probably should have come up with some distinction or definition before. Yeah. But I get to it by answering it the way that I did is a disciplined mind does not complain. It doesn't. Do I want to go do this? Do I want to do that? Eventually, the older you get, you're like, man, I'm going to stop complaining. Am I going to cut the grass today? Yes, whether I want to or not. Do you want me to go pick up butts on the road? Do you want me to go rake gravel? Do I have to do another inspection? If you stop complaining, the world changes. And whether you're a Marine or anybody, notice how much you complain about things. Just stop. It's something to do, do it. If there's nothing to do, find something to do. It's not up to the sergeant. Find something to do. And the complaining thing dies in the SEAL teams. Like they just kill you. They'll kill it or kill you if you complain about things, because everything is a complaint. Everything you do is a complaint when you're a complainer.
Yeah.
And so literally, even in business and coaching, people complain about things. Well, you can complain. It's just not helpful. And it hurts everybody around you when you have that on the tip of your tongue. I don't have enough money, don't have enough time. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Nobody can do anything about that. And the unique thing about combat is there's nothing to complain about.
Right.
You're here. I don't have enough ammo. How many bullets do you have? You have 7. Good. Complaining's not going to help, not going to give you the 8th round. My gun's not right. Well, use it as a hammer, something, do something. And to excel in a combat environment, you realize that premise, it's not discipline. It's, I got to stop complaining about things not working out.
Yeah. Till that end, complaining and all that. I remember talking, and it's written down, Guadalcanal now, the Marines, on Guadalcanal, first really big battle. And because for some reason the admiral took the ships off the coast, took them away. So the Marines were left. And I talked to a guy one time, and he said, we ran out of food. We literally ran out of food. There was water because there was rivers and streams, but we ran out of food. And they literally told us, listen, the fastest way we can get food is to kill the Japanese and get theirs. And he said, that's exactly what we did. They would charge us, but we would pursue them, and we would overrun their little bases and all that, and they would have bags of rice and stuff. And so we absolutely we had to kill them to get their food. Yep. Whereas everybody else was like, oh my God, we're cut off. We have no supplies. We're going to starve to death. No, hang on there. So I'm agreeing with you. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, that's a positive way of saying don't complain. Yeah. Just be a solution provider. And it takes young kids a long time to not blame other people.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to be in combat. I'm a 19-year-old Marine. I've gone through boot camp or force recon, and I feel like I'm all that. The world's not serving me.
Yeah, it's not fair.
Okay, bro, who cares?
Yeah.
Stay in the game. Be relevant as long as you can. And complaining never solved anything other than destroying things.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I wanted to talk about a topic that, gets a lot of attention, and that's the dual concept of fear and uncertainty, and it goes back to one of the previous questions. I think everybody at first says, everybody tells you, hey, if you're not afraid, you're an idiot or whatever. So they're telling you you're going to feel fear, all the experienced guys. But I think most people say, all right, when I really feel it, this is probably going to be the worst fear I ever. I could die here. Am I going to be able to overcome that? I think is a question. So based upon your experience pre and during and after combat, Thom, what would you say to those who have yet to face that test? What advice would you give them? If they said, Thom, no bullshit, young SEAL, I hear about this fear and all that. What do you think? What was your answer be?
I had, it was explained to us in the SEAL teams. There's a distinction between being scared and fear. There are 2 different phenomenons. Scared is what intelligent people have. Like the enemy is 58 and we're 9. There's something to be scared about there. A bomb going off is a reactive experience, and you're scared and you react. Fear is a detrimental, emotional, hormonal response to that thing that scared you. Another way of saying that is fear literally is just an emotional response that can be trained away. You can train fear as a response to something. Put somebody in an environment that goes bad, let them experience it. Okay, you didn't die. You can still breathe.
Yeah.
Like if I'm afraid of public speaking, speak. You know what I mean? Go up and say something embarrassing. You're like, oh my, I didn't die. You know, if you're afraid to ask a girl out, the fear will prevent you from doing it. So fear prevents any activity, and it's a learned thing. Anything that you're afraid of, you were taught to be afraid of it. So if you understand that about fear, do difficult things so you don't react emotionally and hormonally. Because if you were to see the cascade of hormones and that happen when people experience real fear, you can't do anything. But that response is a learned response, which is, why Marines go into tons of bad training experiences to stop being afraid. And then that's how you negate fear. There's literally, once you understand that, there's nothing to be afraid of that you can't unlearn. If you're afraid to fail, you won't do anything. So go fail at something. That wasn't so bad. You're afraid she's going to say no if you ask her out on a date. Go ask her with the intent that she says no. Okay, I didn't die. There's another woman out there. And I'm saying that not facetiously, but fear is a learned response that happens to human beings that you can train away. Spend a lot of time understanding that if you're going to go into the military. Fear is a learned response. Stop letting your response prevent you from doing activity. That's how I would always answer the fear thing. The only reason SEALs train all the time is to get rid of that. Yeah. They put you into unwinnable scenarios so that you stop having that emotional response of nothing. Like if I get gripped by fear, I can't make a decision. Like I can't. So they're going to put you into a bunch of no-win scenarios and say, okay, this is where you locked up. Let's come back and index and reset. Get to that scenario again where you were gripped like you were, and I want you to make a decision that we've taught you to make. Even if it's retreat or shift left or notice that when you were afraid you didn't even shoot your gun. Now we want you to shoot your gun. And you're like, oh my God, if I just get moving, all the fear will go away.
Yeah.
In business too, everybody's afraid to fail. Go screw it up for a while. Get back on the phone. Who cares if she said bad? Who cares if they didn't buy your product? Who cares? Get back on the phone. Don't be afraid to screw it up 100 times. And the only value of training is to get rid of fear and to learn a skill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'm gonna talk to you now about I think it was Clausewitz that actually said this long ago about the fog of war. Mm-hmm. Combat starts and seemingly simple tasks now become very hard or impossible and all that. The battle plan, that saying, no battle survives the first shot, and all of that. And I know you've experienced with those, I forget how many missions and all that, but all those missions you ran out of ammo and all of that. So you've certainly experienced a bunch of fog of war. So I guess, is it real? Should we expect it? And what's your advice on how to deal with it? Because it's coming.
The fog of war and the uncertainty of combat, of harsh environments, there will always be uncertainty, but the but answer, everything that you've been trained to do will be effective. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
And in the fog of conflict, where the best analogy is that I'm training you to shoot a shotgun, and you demonstrate back to me that you can shoot a shotgun. And we go out and we throw some clay pigeons out. It's still clarity. There's no fog there. And it's a nice static range, and you're hitting the pigeons, and they're gone, and you miss a couple, and you know what you didn't do. Okay, cool. Now you know how to shoot in a garrison environment where there's no fog. Now I'm going to put you into the fog scenario. And this fog scenario is how, when things go bad, what you won't do are the basics. So I take you out to a hilltop where there's trees and same shotgun, but now I drop the shotgun in the mud and it feels different. And now I start yelling at you, and it's dusk, and it's not, 12 noon. The clarity isn't there. And I launched 20 clay pigeons. You know what you won't do? You won't shoot at one anymore because it's unclear what to do. You'll watch that person that you've trained and they've demonstrated back to you they can shoot really well. When there's too many things to deal with, which is what combat is, there's 1,000 problems. Solve one of them. Just solve one, and you'll get clear and you'll move forward. And you have to teach that person, shoot at one. You know how to shoot one, shoot one. Well, there's 999 left. Who cares? Keep shooting one. That's what success is in the fog of war. The Clausian problem is it's foggy, but you still have to do the basic things you've been trained to do. Yeah. And it won't make sense to do them. Shoot, communicate, simple things, simple skill sets that any Marine, any Navy person, the Delta and the SEALs, all you do is train in the fog of war. And all you do in the fog of war are the basic skill sets that you have and nothing else. Because the enemy's not doing that either. Enemy's not shooting straight. They're waiting. They can't make a decision. The best decision is the one that you know how to make, and make it. And then everybody carry that out. It seems easy to say, very difficult to do, because it's gray space and it's conflicted. Can you just shoot your weapon? That makes success. The next thing that happens is during the fog of war, can you do the basics? And if you do, you win, because nobody else is.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Well, that's a good place to end, Thom. We're out of time, so we're going to call an end to part one, and We'll come back and do part two, Thom Shea part two. But before I let you go, though, why don't you tell us a little bit about your books? First of all, tell us a little bit about your business, because I know you're a leadership guy, and I think you have a foot in corporate America and back in the soft community as well. So what are you doing professionally these days? And then tell us about your books. Why'd you write them? Where can people find them? Where can people find you?
So I am in the business of, I mentor 10 leaders a year. Through a process that I've developed both in the teams and in the 10 years of teaching leaders. It's about a year-long process that is very effective. And we do off-site events for companies to get down to what I call it the baseline. What are the baseline skills in life and in business that will just erupt and in a positive way, blow up your business? Yeah. So the first book I wrote as letters home, not intending to write it. It was a series of letters home to my wife and kids in case I died, that they would have some knowledge of me and what I've learned in my life. But then I survived. So the book called Unbreakable, A Navy SEAL's Way of Life was originally a book called Spartan Woman. Because I think I tried to convey this to my kids. Successful men aren't successful without a strong wife. And I've seen great men fall apart because of their marriages. And I wanted that to be a key point. But the publisher said nobody cares about the Spartan Woman title. So I'm like, whatever, do it. So it's 13 lessons that I wanted my kids to learn while I was in combat. And it did pretty well. I have no idea why. It was written by somebody who'd failed out of West Point in English. It's very raw. It was a discussions that I was having with my family and about what I was going through. The second book was about about foggy gray things called 3 Simple Things Leading During Chaos. And it's a series of principles of getting down to 3 things that you can accomplish on a day-to-day basis that will make a huge difference to you and your family and your business. And I'm like you, all over social media. I pulled out of social media because business got too big, and I wanted to have less time away. So
right. Do you do professional speaking as well?
I do.
Keynote speaker?
Yep. That's what happened out of the book. Like, I didn't know anything. When I retired, I didn't know anything about the business world. So the book came out in 2014 when I retired. And it got me on a speaking tour that was somewhat rewarding financially, but felt empty. And I liked long-term things with people, vice excitement. And I got into the teaching leaders paradigm out of the speaking engagements.
Yeah, absolutely. Your books are on Amazon, other booksellers?
On Amazon, and they're probably too old for the bookstores. The bookstores won't carry it past 3 years.
Right,
but, Or contact me, and I'd love to send you a copy. And
you have a website? Did you say that already?
THOMSHEA.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Thom. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward. This is a good episode. It's going to be popular. And I go through each of these episodes. I watch them again, and I make what I call combat lessons. I'll publish the whole episode, but I'll go into, oh man, what he said from 1:13 to 2:38 was good. So I tell the video guy, and as I was going through, as you were talking, I'm like, man, there's one. So I think I mentally noted at least 12 combat lessons. And like, what he said is so profound that if they can't watch the whole podcast, if they can watch that 1.5 minutes, they're going to get something out of it. So you know, like any good leader, you're very self-deprecating and humble, but you dropped some real words of wisdom during this hour or so, Thom, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, my friend.
Appreciate you.
Good finally meeting you, virtually in person and all of that. It has greatly exceeded my expectations. So thank you again. And for the audience, please, as always, promote this episode, share it with your friends. Our tribe here at Combat Leadership Podcast is growing. Our only purpose here is to help out future combat leaders. And so this episode is going to be out there, whatever the internet looks like 50 years from now. Thom and I are both long gone. Maybe our great-great-grandson will look at something and remember something in a dark, dusty corner of the earth, which is all we can hope for. So Thanks again, Thom. And so we are rounds complete for Thom Shea Part 1. And as always, leaders, go forth and lead well.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, and recommend to your friends. Please visit our website at combatleadership.com. Until next time, remember the words of the ancient philosopher Plato. Only the dead have seen the end of war.